and I would recommend this to any photographer. The best thing you can ever do is have your own studio.
But what do you think is a way that you use art to sell something, sell a product?
Imagine the best of both worlds. A music studio on wheels, you can park anywhere you want. Have this incredible backdrop while you make music. Do I need 1 million views or do I need 10 clients?
I don't need to go viral.
Yeah, I instantly hate everything I make when it's finished. So your subconscious can do two things. It can either like dream about weird things all night, or it can solve problems for you.
Hi, this is Michael from Modular Agency in Taipei, a tech-focused marketing agency for tech companies. I'm very happy to have James Huell here on the show. James is a 15-year veteran art director, videographer, writer, photographer. He's worked with some huge brands in the fashion world, not only fashion world, and you have your own magazine here in Bali. What's the name of your magazine?
Pawn Magazine, P-A-W-N.
Pawn Magazine. And so what James is here to teach us is the importance of art direction and how to grow a business with better content, because what we do at Modular is we do content production, and we've seen our clients' businesses grow through producing better content. James has been doing it for 15 years, and there's a lot we can learn from him. He's from the UK, based here in Bali.
Yeah.
So, James, maybe you can tell us your story, how you got into being an art director, being a general cool, creative person.
Okay, so going back to the very beginning, I had the luck of being working within corporate business. I was working for a property company that ended up buying about £250 million worth of property. And I was in that industry because it was part of sort of my family lineage to go in that direction. But during that time, digital cameras became available, and that rekindled my love of photography, which kind of disappeared in my late teens, early 20s because of the cost of processing film. So once it was digital and I thought I can capture images for free, as many as I want, just started taking pictures. And at that time I was living in Berlin, which is a very inspirational city. And I was capturing kind of lifestyle shots of, being out everywhere, and shooting also landscapes and portraiture and street photography. And I just, at that point, Facebook was just sort of getting traction. And so I was showing those images, and people just kept telling me, you should be doing this, you should be doing this. And the entire reason I was working in that industry was to get to a point where I could start my own creative business. And then there was a market crash, and I moved to Bali, and I just kept taking pictures. And then I got my first photography and writing job for Deus Ex Machina, that were just basically ramping up their marketing, using Bali as a hub for content creation, because the things you can do here you can't necessarily do in the rest of the world. So I did a year with them, and then it's kind of torture when you surf to photograph surfing all the time, because you want to be out there, and also like there's a very specific way that they brand. And I learned a lot about branding and building a company, because I watched a company go from a single shop and an Australian brand to a global brand, and I watched how that happened and the parameters in which, and that gave me a lot of knowledge that I utilized later. But as far as creatively was concerned, I did want to get into shooting more sort of artistic photography and also sort of straight up fashion. So I built a studio here. I left Deus. I continued to work with them for a year or so afterwards, but I built my own studio. And then within that space, and I would recommend this to any photographer, the best thing you can ever do is have your own studio where you can create concepts and kind of try them out all the time. And you'll always have someone that'll come in and want to be part of it. People crave content now, so somebody will come in and be part of your creative process. And doing that for 4 years really kind of refined it. But obviously you have to kind of pay for that space and pay for all your equipment. So I took on a lot of different types of clients and worked with a lot of different types of clients. And that taught me what I'm now utilizing. Because at that point and at that age, you want to say yes to everything, but you don't realize that those choices are detrimental to your creativity if they're not correct. Right. Because certain types of clients and how they operate or how they don't know how to operate causes you a lot more stress, and generally those are the lowest paying clients. Yeah. So it's less money, more stress, and you end up getting sort of railroaded into a certain direction. So that's where I got my experience from that process, and that took me up until about sort of 2015. Then I left Bali and went looking for more inspiration for a few years. Yeah.
So you had, at that point, you'd been a freelancer for about 10 years or so?
From sort of 2010, 2009, 10, I was working as a freelancer. Yeah.
So there's a lot of people walking around with nice cameras and even nice phones and shooting stuff and Instagram and TikTok. Why were clients willing to pay you for your work? What were you capturing that they wanted?
Well, I mean, I think just being sort of consistent. So I even then, and this is what I do now, I shop for magazines then, and then that allows you to express yourself without the client in mind. But it also then attracts the clients because that's where they see your work. And what they want to do is take what they've seen you do when you're just creating free, and then they want to kind of bring, marry that together with their brand. Some people walk up to you and just say, I want it to look like this. And I've said to clients before, just shoot it with your phone.
Yeah.
If that's what you want, like that's easy. Just go and shoot with your phone at the beach. Like, I don't do that.
So you are basically shooting your own, basically following your own artistic direction, your own quirky sense of beauty and composition. And then how did clients find you? Did you have a portfolio?
At that point, it was just kind of through my magazines, and I continued to shoot events. So everybody kind of saw, and at that point I was using Facebook the way that you would use Instagram now, but because on Facebook it was acceptable to kind of post 30 pictures from an event, and then obviously I had all of my other shoots on that same page, but people would want to see their pictures, so they would go to my page and then download or share or whatever the images and see the other things that I was doing. So that was the way that I marketed myself. But most of my work came from the magazines, which was me, creating completely free, and then the rest was word of mouth. And I think as much as you can do on Instagram to get your first few clients, I think that a lot of it would then come from word of mouth between those people talking and looking at each other's work. Because if you shoot for one person, they know other people in fashion or within the creative industry, and they're looking at each other's accounts. So as soon as you get onto one, you end up working with people that they know, and then you'll go to a different area, and then that'll attract people from that direction.
Right.
Yeah.
So then how would you define your style, and what was different about what you were doing compared to what other people were doing at the time?
I mean, just because of my influences growing up, and I think this is a very important thing to take into account, either create influences, like artistic influences, by exposing yourself to things that relate to content that you've seen, that if you have a certain movie director or a certain writer or a certain make sure that you explore every avenue of how and why they create that way, so it gets impregnated into your mind. So I would say Sorry, go back to the original question because I got lost in thinking about that. Because
I'm kind of asking you to be self-aware and define either your early.
Oh yeah. So my influences came from those from the artistic and say cinema sort of backgrounds plus lifestyle.
Okay.
So specific lifestyles I enjoyed, like living in Berlin and getting into the music scene, being part of like the skateboarding scene and different sort of fashion scenes and art scenes, like I roll all that into, even if it's a tiny amount, even if there's only a limited bandwidth in which I can move that into a project. That's the difference maker for me, because I'm always trying to put an emotion or a feeling that I've had previously into a piece of work so that somebody else can feel part of that, even if it's something corporate.
Yeah.
There's some kind of emotion going into it. So, yeah.
Yeah. So I think that human emotion is kind of what separates a memorable piece of art from something that just looks kind of like an ad or something that you might see, right? And I think it's not easy to do that. I've seen some of your photos from parties where most of your photos are like candid, where people don't even know they're being shot.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, because I want the truth of the situation, not especially now in the world where people know and train themselves to pose.
Right.
People that would never have been in images ever know how to pose incredibly well. So
yeah, I mean,
you can't let anyone know that you're taking their picture, otherwise you don't capture any form of reality.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm one of those people where if I have to pose for a picture, it looks really bad and fake, and I'm kind of like smiling.
Just go on YouTube, take a few tutorials.
So it sounds like what you have, like how you define your work is you bring a sense of truth and emotion to your photos and videos, and I think your art direction in general. Is that?
Yeah, there has to be a certain authenticity. And I think for the individual and other people starting out, the important thing is to find that voice within you. And from that, because that's the thing that's going to excite you. That's like, plucking the perfect chord. It just resonates. And like if you follow that thread, your work is going to accelerate, but much more in the direction. You're going to be more excited to do it every single day. So I think that's a very important thing to take into account. And then what happens once that's defined, if you're brave enough, you can then say yes and no to clients based on how that fits in. Or you can say there's an opportunity for me to operate within your market, but you have to be a little bit brave. You have to take a bit of a risk. And a lot of people will do that because they understand that they need to differentiate themselves from other brands selling similar products.
Right.
And the imagery and the content is the way to do that, as subtle as that is.
So I know I wouldn't call you a pure artist, because I know you connect art to business, and you're kind of like in between the two worlds. What do you think is a trick? Now, you just mentioned for example, to bring this into a brand, to help a brand differentiate. But what do you think is a way that you use art to sell a product?
Again, that purely comes back to the emotional response that people get, and that doesn't have to be a nice feeling. It can be an anxious feeling, an aggression, a passion, like anything. There just has to be some part of it in there, and then that's going to connect with people. I think, yeah. If you're as a fashion photographer, like you can capture an image and then like you're shooting a model, and then the images look very similar. So when you're doing the selection, you're looking for the most amount of intensity from the model's look to you directly or indirectly. Like that's the one that you choose in the end. Even if the clothes aren't perfect in that shot compared to another one, you choose the one that has that feeling.
Right.
So, yeah.
So I know when we work together, I kind of just give you a very vague brief, and I'm like, we do PC gaming photo shooting together, and I kind of just say, hey James, shoot this, and I kind of trust your artistic vision to come back to me with something that is, I guess, moving or emotional or something that turns heads. Now, when you work with clients, do they work like that with you, or do they give you a very specific brief, or what's your way of working with clients to kind of like help them in the best way?
I'm working with some clients from London for they met with a major car brand I won't mention right now, and they wanted to create something to take their brand from how they were perceived for the last almost probably a century they've been making cars, and bring them into a younger market, and how to do that with a high quality product, and then to bring it in. So he says to me, look, I'm going to meet them. Like, what can I say to them? What do you have any ideas, or do I just pitch that we're associating music with brands and we're going to try and work together with them? So I came up with an idea to utilize the car as a music studio, because I know that it has incredibly good sound insulation.
That's cool.
So yeah, so that's, that was just an idea. I thought about the product. I've been in one of these cars before, the older cars they made, and the first thing that clicked was when you're in it, you can't hear anything outside.
Right.
It's like it's its own little very comfortable world.
Yeah. To
protect you from the rest of the world. And I thought, well, and I've produced music before, and I thought, normally you're in a dark space and you can't see out anywhere. Like, imagine the best of both worlds. A music studio on wheels, you can park anywhere you want. Have this incredible backdrop while you make music and record your audio and play instruments and everything. So that idea came from that, and how that relates back to the client is, if you have that idea that's based on something that you felt, it might be a little bit out there, but you pitch that, and then normally you get good feedback. Right. With good ideas, people know them. Yeah. People know that's a good idea.
I mean, you're not like a suit and tie kind of guy, so I think when clients work with you, they're not going to constrain you, or hopefully they know better than to try to constrain you, but rather to set you free in what ideas you can bring to the brand.
I've had those meetings where I'm dealing with people that want to stay very much within a certain bandwidth, and then you basically end up like creating the thing that you want and what they want, and then you show them what you wanted to make, and then show them what they wanted afterwards, and see what they choose.
So you kind of have to convince them that their own ideas aren't as good as they think they are.
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, but it's just that it's more comfortable, because you can talk about the extreme of a concept, and then you marry it together with their brand. So your conversation can go way outside the box, but you only use little facets of that to create your final imagery. Right. So it's having that conversation and not scaring them. And it might, and then you say, okay, we'll do it that way. But then you introduce little parts of it, and then they see the value.
Oh, okay. So you kind of agree with what they want, and then little by little, you kind of introduce some of your own concepts and your own ideas.
Yeah.
As to not scare them away.
I think you could also say, so you could, this is a bit cheeky. You can say, so you just want it to look like every other brand that's selling the same things.
Pretty sarcastic.
No, but I mean, just straight up, it's like, that's what you want. You want a cookie cutter finish of exactly. And then you want to rely on like your Google ads to generate sales. And what that means is you're not a brand. Do you know what I mean? You're relying on marketing, and you're just in a price point war.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? You're just like, someone's going to make a choice if they can get the better deal for what you have. So, you change the label and it's the same, then you're not a brand. But there's a lot of huge companies in the world that are like that. You know what I mean? When you choose Coca-Cola, you choose Coca-Cola because it's Coca-Cola. Right. You don't go, this cola over here is like 20 cents cheaper, I'll buy that. Right. Because Coca-Cola's a brand. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Yeah.
So you're kind of helping brands to, I think, push the boundaries of who they are and look within themselves and kind of keep evolving, right? Because a brand can grow stagnant, I think.
Yeah. I think so. This is what happens now so you got to remember that everybody is marketing their products on basically platforms that are brands themselves. Mm-hmm. So Instagram and TikTok are very different. They're a brand. So you want to market on their brand. You have a choice. You can dilute your brand's identity to fit in with their brand identity, so you contribute to their brand, and at that point you disappear in a sea of everybody. Or you can stick to your brand, and then the people that do see it, which will be less, are loyal to you.
Right.
And that's what I think is the difference between the two.
So you're kind of going for,
If you had less views but more loyalty,
right?
your brand works. You got 1 million views and no loyalty, it's just another reel that you're going through. You know what I mean? That's
Yeah. So do you think this is a hard thing to communicate where, business people, they just see, they just want to grow, and more customers means more profits. But then I think as an art director or as marketing people, we kind of have to keep reminding business people that if you niche down, if you have a solid brand, and you might have fewer customers, but they'll spend more, the customer lifetime value will be actually higher.
Yeah. I think like Seth Godin talks about this. Like if if you're just like machine gunning, your marketing out, like, and it just goes everywhere, and you hit or miss, you just don't,
Right.
That's kind of something. But like what he said was like, we create for people that care, basically. We create imagery and messages for people that actually care about them. And that's rewarding. Like, those people want to feel and be part of what you're creating.
Yeah.
So if that's who you're targeting, then you create differently. If you're actually trying to connect with an individual or a group of people, it's different than just going, like and I've seen it over the last 2 years when people make YouTube thumbnails, and that look, which is psychologically like, it's like an anticipatory moment where your brain goes, oh, I want to see what happens next. So everybody does their little thumbnail pictures like that on YouTube now.
Right. Yeah.
Like, I don't,
like usually there's
if that's what you're creating for, exactly. And it's just like, because your brain wants to know the shock and awe of like what's happening next. It's like, it's like tabloid. It's like reading tabloid headlines and then reading the first bit, rather than reading like, what somebody says about a really good book and then reading the whole book.
No, but that's an interesting point, because I saw some YouTube influencer, like a YouTuber who teaches you how to be a YouTuber. And he was mentioning that because of the algorithm, it's basically become like tabloids on the newsstand, because it's whatever most outrageous title and image is going to get most of the clicks. And so now all YouTubers are kind of just like trying to push the limit of how outrageous and clickbaity their titles are going to be. And so I feel like we're kind of going back to those tabloid days, full circle. With
and
YouTube.
I think within that noise and that space and how populated it gets, there are certain channels that I go to for information, and I never really see them kind of advertised that much. But I actually think I really want to watch one of those, because it's an interesting, like...
Based on the thumbnail, or?
No, exactly. But then when I've actually seen some of those people, like some of the resources of where I get information about sort of, creative processes and other people that have a lot of insight. And when you actually now see them doing those thumbnails, for me, I actually lose respect for them.
Yeah, right.
I'm like, oh my gosh, you've actually completely sold out. Right. But I understand, if you need 1 million views to get paid from YouTube, or are you marketing yourself or your services? In which case, like imagine if you were a content creator and you made something that got 1 million views and that gave you 1 million clients. What are you going to do? Right. You get 1 million emails asking you to work. It's already ruined your life. You need 10 of them a month, if that's it.
Right.
Right. So
good point.
Do I need 1 million views, or do I need 10 clients?
Yeah. I mean, if you got 100 views and half of them became your clients, right? I'd be pretty happy with
exactly.
I don't need to go viral.
Exactly. Unless your business is being paid by YouTube.
Right.
And then it's a different kind of thing.
Yeah. And those people are, fewer and fewer.
Yeah.
So then how do you define the role of an art director? You call yourself an art director now, right?
I think now, because other people started calling you that first.
I call you that.
Yeah. And then in the magazine, people are like, what's your role in the magazine? And I'm like, well, I'm the editor. I'm the art director. Yeah, that feels right. So it's something I just became, rather than I didn't say to myself, I want to be an art director.
Right.
I wanted to create things, and then that's the role.
You didn't choose this role; it chose you.
Yeah. Yeah. It is funny when people first started calling me a photographer, and I was just like, really? like in the first like 2 years.
Because you were just a writer with a camera in
Yeah,
right?
and then you start getting paid for your work, and then that's a thing, and then but you still don't define yourself as that one kind of thing.
I think it's kind of like that imposter syndrome, which incidentally, the most successful people have the most imposter syndrome because, and they're constantly nervous that they're not good enough, which makes them push themselves further and further and learn more. And
yeah, I instantly hate everything I make when it's finished.
Right. I mean, you should,
so
right?
It's done, and then a month later you look at it and you see all the mistakes, and then that drives you forward.
Right, because as soon as you're satisfied with it, you'll stop improving.
I think like what defines you as a professional is when you have a bad day, your work is acceptable at a professional level.
Even on a bad
day. On your bad day. So that you're not a professional. Because some people, they do a shoot and then because the thing that a lot of people don't realize about, especially photo shoots, is as a photographer, you're managing personalities. Because they're not everyone's going to get on. And sometimes the clients are nuts, or the makeup artist has a problem, or the model's having a bad day. But in the end, it's down to you completely, the output. Like, if it looks bad, it's your fault. So you have to manage all of those people and create this kind of space in which you can get out of it like what you want. And like nobody really talks about that. But when that goes wrong, if you don't have the confidence and the understanding of what's going on to bring it out of people, and the shoot goes bad, then you can't really call yourself a professional. And training, I don't think people really train for that. I don't know. People don't really talk about like the psychology of managing a shoot.
Yeah, it's kind of like being the captain of a ship. I mean, I think it's the most important job.
Yeah, if you crash into the rocks, it's your fault.
So a lot of people know what a photographer is, what a videographer is. The word art director, I think, is still vague for a lot of people. How do you define this role?
Well, essentially, like, there are film directors that pick the camera up, but you don't need to. You're just doing it because you want to. So the art director is kind of the same thing. You can pick the camera up, but you're managing everything, whether you touch the equipment or not. Right. So you're deciding exactly how everything kind of is going to look. So even if you're an art director and you have a director, the director and the director of photography are doing their little roles. You're just making sure that it all stitches together into your previous, the vision that you've come up with and presented to the client. So, and you're taking into account a lot more aspects of like relating between the brand, and sort of even as far as like color psychology, like what colors are we going to use in this? Do you know what I mean? Like how like you have to take all of that into account, and that's when you start becoming the art director rather than just the photographer.
Yeah, it's funny. My experience is exactly the same. When we do a photo shoot, I just know that it's my ass if this photo shoot goes wrong.
Yeah.
So then I just inevitably become the art director because I'm the one who cares the most, and I'm the one who's trying to create the mood and precision and colors, just like you said. So I feel like this is a role that just whoever in the room who cares the most would kind of float up to become the art director.
I mean, the thing with being an art director is it's the last thing that people want to pay for. A lot of the time, sometimes it's a stylist. Sometimes it's like, do you know what I mean? Like but it's actually the most important role.
Right. Well, so why do you think that is? I mean, why is it like?
Because people just think the photographer's going to do it.
Right. They don't understand. And the truth is, when we hire photographers, they'll just actually stand there and take a photo and they're kind of like machines, right? They're not invested in the outcome too much.
Yeah.
And so I've seen that as an agency, as a marketing agency, I invest in art directors, and they tend to get paid more than anyone on the set. But
yeah, they can make a huge difference to the output and take a lot of pressure off of as we talked about earlier, that pressure of a photographer to get, or a filmmaker to get everything right. If you can kind of define those roles, and I think that's why it's becoming more popular now, and a lot of people starting out should think about this, of like building that little team. Because if you have people around you, if there's 2 or 3 people working on a shoot, you can do it more efficiently. And also you've got that kind of support system. And, you know, this is why I loved working with a stylist instead of just the brand owner styling. Because, you know, if they've got a fashion brand, they have an idea of fashion. But having the stylist there also, they're spotting the things that I can't see in the camera. Do you know what I mean? Little things here, little things in here. Especially if you're filming, you can't fix those things in post-production.
Right.
So it's just nice to have that kind of that team mentality. Yeah.
So as an art director, earlier you spoke about a common theme in your work is you bring truth and you bring emotion to the images, whether it's photo, video, probably art direction as well. And that's what clients want, right? That's how you can kind of push the brand forward and help it evolve. And so do you have a framework for how you do that? Like when you start a photo shoot, how do you actually, it sounds like a very conceptual, abstract idea, but how do you bring this truth and emotion into a shoot?
I think, yeah, first you look at the product. It is good to just go, right, this is the product. What does the client think the target audience is? And then you can go a bit deeper than that and go, well, actually, you know, it could be this. So then you define who they are, what the message is supposed to be. So that's step one. And then you need to, find out how does this thing make me feel, or how can I present some part of it to you know, that will get somebody to feel something. And at that point you're kind of dreaming. You know what I mean? You're just kind of dreaming into this realm, like daydreaming and then something will hit you, and then you take that idea and expand on it.
Right.
So this is actually a very good tool that I use. So I used to do this for the day before shoots, and also when I hit a kind of a blockage on something. So you just before you go to sleep, you think about the issue, what you're trying to solve, and just think about it. Ask yourself all of these questions, because your conscious mind sleeps, but your subconscious doesn't sleep.
Right.
So your subconscious can do 2 things. It can either like dream about weird things all night, or it can solve problems for you.
Right.
And then when you wake up the next day, if you think about, okay, what if it rains for tomorrow? What if it rains? And then this is the location. If it's cloudy at this point, where can I shoot? Because if you're very strict on what you want to do, something changes. You don't have any idea. Suddenly, if you do this before you sleep, you'll wake up the next day, you'll take that first shot or capture the first sequence, and everything just, you have an answer for everything. Like if something goes wrong, you know what to kind of do next. And I do that in the creative process as well. So I will utilize that same framework to try and find the thing that is going to give me the emotion to create from.
So you just spend some time consciously thinking about the whole project before you.
Sometimes it is subconsciously, like with the project we did for the gaming. I mean, after we spoke about it later, I realized where I'd got that feeling from, and it was visually giving you the feeling of the most intense moment when you're in a game and it's super critical.
Right.
And that's the feeling that you're addicted to when you're playing. You love that moment. And when you survive it or you lose from it, it makes you motivated to keep going.
Right.
And that's what was tapped into.
Yeah.
But like that came out kind of subconsciously. I'd put all those ideas in my head, but like when I arrived at that, that's where I was drawing that.
Yeah.
For me, it just felt good to make it that way, because I was just replicating
a feeling, a certain
and I was just creating to that, but I wasn't sure. I knew it made sense, but I hadn't exactly defined it.
Right.
But you can define it for sure.
So it sounds like you basically you have a self-awareness about what are the feelings in which situation, and then when you create art, you can kind of just like illustrate those feelings. Or it sounds like that's a kind of a bit of how you approach it.
Yeah, I mean, because I've always written to a certain extent, but then while I was away from Bali for 4 years, I wrote a lot more than I was taking images. I wrote the most. When you write, you have to structure everything in a certain way, and you have to explore and accentuate certain parts. And so you have like this mixture between the mundane, what was just the descriptions of a situation, where that's leading and what it's going into. So that's where I learned the importance of those emotional things, because that's
As a writer.
when you're reading through them, that's what comes out. So as much as you're saying this is the product, and then you need to get to that point within your narrative, even if it's a 15-second story, where the reader or the observer just feels that kind of thing and then goes out the other side.
So you actually made like a written storyboard even for something that's very...
I do it naturally in my head now with everything. I'll tell myself a story, or I'll create a visual story of it. That just happens naturally. But it's something you could literally put a piece of paper in front of you and map that out. It is a process you can replicate. It just becomes natural. Like somebody cooking food, you know. They don't have to think about the ingredients and what they're going to do.
Right.
You know, they just know
they
know they work, and that if you mix that, and they can kind of freestyle it because they have the experience of doing it. But you can go in and really, you know, meticulously learn about how those things link together until you get to the point that it does just come naturally.
So as a newer person starting out in art direction, what would you say is the best, like...
No, I would look at the ingredients. And also just learn, first is to understand who you are and what you want. Like, it doesn't have to be a final thing, but what you like, what makes you feel good, and kind of map that out, and then see how that relates to the professional world. Or to, you know, and then and just try and just link those things up, and maintain the kind of passion, because a passionate creator is a good one. Yeah.
So we both know that an art director is crucial for a campaign or a piece of design, video, photo, to connect with people. But why do you think this kind of like truth and emotion helps to sell things? So I guess what I'm asking is, why do you think brands need art directors?
Well, I think that every product is trying to solve a problem, right?
Right.
There's an issue.
Yeah, isn't it enough just to solve the problem, show how the product solves a problem? Why should we go through all this extra work?
But then the reason why you purchase something is because you believe it's going to solve a problem. Now, that can be a functional problem. Like just, you know, I need this to do this. Or I think the more of those you can get in there, the more reasons, the more issues it professes to solve, then that, you know, the more that you can get in there in a balanced way, the better, the more you're going to sell that product. I think there has to be a certain amount of authenticity when you do that.
Right.
You can't.
Just copy it.
I mean, you can't just like, you can't lie to people about what somebody's going to do. Although people have done that in certain campaigns, beer campaigns, like Foster's in England, like and other sort of where they will blatantly lie to you about what the product is going to do as part of an ongoing. I mean, it's not really going to solve that, but it's nice to have like a cold beer, and you know, that's it. But you know, so that's the reverse sort of idea of it. But I think
you use the word authenticity, which I think may be the end goal for the art director.
Yeah, to connect with the person through an authentic feeling. That's what's going to generate the loyalty, rather than to a brand, rather than just the just buying something on Amazon that showed up.
Right.
Because you're like, oh, I might need that.
I think like there's certain people who never shop on Amazon and go directly to a brand's website, and certain people who never go to a brand's website and just go to Amazon.
Yeah, and then price check. Yeah.
Right. And I think that for me, when I buy something, I'm always looking for that authenticity, and I'm always looking for some kind of something beyond the product that I can define myself. Like if I buy this certain pair of jeans, for example, I spend way too much money on like Italian jeans.
Yeah.
And I don't know why. And sometimes I look back and I think, well, I think I just want to be part of this kind of secret community or tribe.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's what's happening more and more now. Is I think what you're doing now is it's groups of people and collective, communities. You're targeting communities.
Right.
and you're giving people an object which further reaffirms that they are part of that community.
Yeah.
And that's growing even more and more now. And all of the technology that we have now to access these people instantly from anywhere in the world, and anybody can do it.
Mm-hmm.
That's the first part. And the second part is that you have to take into account that these people are connecting in their little groups.
Yeah.
And they do exist, and they want to people to know that they are part of that community.
Yeah.
And that's actually the other way that I find markets that maybe other people haven't seen. Do you know what I mean? Like looking into those groups, like who would use it, and then you might find a whole different group of people that they didn't even see that would be attracted to a product.
Right. Yeah. I think as a sort of marketing art director, people, we kind of define our world in different communities and tribes that we see. I know I do that. Like if I see a certain person, I might put them in a little box like, okay, you're a target market for a certain product, but you're not. And I think the most successful marketing people or art directors are the people who really understand like target audiences.
Yeah.
And this idea of
understanding why people become those things. Like there are things that I'm not necessarily into, like say something, like LARPing, like live action role play. Like for me, that's a very, very surreal thing that it's something I would never go and do.
I'm not too familiar with that.
It's when you go and pretend that you are actually, say, in like something like Game of Thrones, and you dress up and you go and actually, have battles and in those huge groups of people that do this. Right. But I understand why they do it. I understand why they're doing it and the feeling they get out of it. It's like children. They're exploring their imagination, letting it run wild.
Right.
They're feeling a community. They're realizing that they're not alone in their little quirkiness, which is lovely. It's surrounded by other wonderfully quirky kind of people.
Yeah.
And that gives them a sense of community. Do you know what I mean? So,
so
as soon as I'll see something and I'll be like, I'll want to find out why. Even if it's not my thing, I'll be like, okay, why are people doing that?
Yeah.
It's very strange.
Right.
And then when you explore it, there are unifying concepts. And then the difference is that, people are quite unique, and also unique in the fact that their uniqueness will separate them into groups, because there's 8 billion people on the planet. So there will be, even no matter how weird it is, there will be a collective of you that you could kind of thrive through. So it's nice. It's nice to explore that.
So I think as an art director, that right there is a framework in itself where if you're curious and inquisitive enough, you can sort of figure out the different groups of people around you.
Yeah.
And then when you start to promote a product and build the content around it, you have to keep those people in mind. And the guy who's doing this Game of Thrones reenactment, he's not going to be the same person who buys, something that someone else wants.
Yeah. He's not. Yeah. But I think having a general interest in society as an observer, and it's one of my like when I go to new cities, I just watch and absorb everything.
Right.
And I'll walk around, I'll be talking to people, and I see all of these different things, and people I'm talking to, how did you see that? We're walking through here, but I'm just absorbing all of this information, and I love it.
Right.
I absolutely love it. And, and just sitting in a cafe watching things happen. I love it.
Yeah.
Like humanity is a constant source of entertainment. So watching that is, I think every kind of art director and any creative needs to have that inside of them. But they do want to look around at the world and see what's happening.
Cool. I think that's a good place to end the segment. One of the things I wanted to ask you was just maybe you could go through some of your bigger or more interesting projects. So we know like what you've done, and then we'll put this segment in the beginning because I kind of skipped that part.
Okay.
So I'll ask the question. So James, what are some of the bigger things you've done in your career that you want to share?
I mean, working with the team that kind of created the Deus aesthetic, which is now, you can see it immediately when you see their videos. Like working within that team was kind of a big deal. The first time, like there were billboards of my images in other countries.
Oh yeah, your
Yeah,
images were on billboard.
Yeah. Like one of the images for Tony and Guy, I was sent a picture of it in London, and they'd seen it on whatever page or on my Instagram or something, and then sent me a picture of it.
Cool.
That was kind of a nice feeling. Yeah, I made a music video for Chameleon, which is that was being played in like weirdly in India on their music television channels, things like that.
Cool.
But I think that I don't really think about those. That's a novelty for me. What you've created, there's like a novelty to have it get to a certain kind of level. Like I modeled at one point for religion, and then my friends that were at Bread and Butter in the trade show clothing in Berlin sent me a load of pictures of me, and I was
Nice.
8 feet high and all around this booth, and it's just like, it's like, oh, you get this kind of feeling about it. But
Yeah.
I think the things that I've made that I like the most are the things that probably I'm afraid to show people. Do you know what I mean? The things I kind of keep for myself, or
Right.
there's a limited group of people. Those are the things I'm the most proud of.
Right.
But they're the things that you're terrified to show people.
What are you worried about?
No, because you think, okay, I really put myself out there then.
Yeah.
If this is rejected, then that's everything I am.
Right.
Literally just somebody walking up to you and going, you're not good enough.
Yeah.
So you've got to keep it there for a little bit. But then I interviewed an artist recently, and she goes, if you've made it, there's some point you're going to have to show it to people.
Yeah.
So you might wait 2 years, but you have to kind of show it. And
And who knows, like it could take you there to that next level.
Mm.
So what are your plans for this year as far as art direction, content creation,
finding better clients.
finding better clients?
No, that want me to do these things for them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And also connecting, and like through the magazine, especially like creating a space where people can do what we've been talking about, to really just kind of let go and create for the sake of creating without any limitations. And it's hard, so sometimes it's good to give a few limitations and let people go past it.
Yeah.
Like not creating without the client in mind in order to attract clients. And that's something I want to do this year with a lot of different people.
Cool.
Yeah.
So basically setting your creativity free without constraint, and then
And
putting it all together.
and using that to attract people to what you do, because that's where they're going to get the biggest emotional response from what you do.
Mm.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So James Heel, how can we contact you for working with you, or with Instagram?
When's this going out?
Should be
About to launch a website.
okay. We could. This should be middle of February, I think.
Okay, that's fine then. So symbiotica.one, www.symbiotica.one.
Okay, we'll put the link.
Yeah, if you go into that, then also I swore to myself I would never do this, but I'm only going to do it once. Because the magazine is in print, and it's available digitally to see on that website.
Oh, the one that used to be just a paper.
That it's just, I'm only doing it with that issue.
Okay, one issue.
Yeah. So yeah, that's available digitally, so you can check out that also.
And you have a print only magazine?
Yeah, I mean, we're going to make digital content as well, but the print version, it's
Where can we pick one of those up?
if you live in Bali, or you've come and visit Bali, you can get on the delivery list. So 500 will go directly out to people that are very interested in it.
Oh,
that want people, and then the rest will be kind of distributed around. But you can actually get on the list of the 500 people that get it delivered directly to where they are.
Okay, so let's not make it too easy for people to do that. They'll have to kind of go through your website.
I will have to check out and see if they really do care about it.
You can vet those people first.
Yeah.
All right, cool. This is very interesting, and a lot of learnings about art direction, content creation from 15-year veteran James Heel.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. Thank you very much.
Cool. So we'll see you on the next one. Thanks, guys.